Buenas tardes ahora.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to begin, so the outgoing president of the Executive Committee will formally open this session of the Executive Committee. Well, first of all, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Distinguished Director, Distinguished Secretary, all the distinguished members of the Bureau and of the main table. I'd like to welcome the members of the Executive Committee. I'd like to welcome you to the 176th session of the Executive Committee. Due to the fact that my country, Uruguay, was the president of the Executive Committee for the period between September 2023 and September 2024, it is up to me to preside over this session until the new president has been elected. I would like to inform that since there are 9 members of the Executive Committee present in the room, there is a quorum, and therefore I declare the session open. I would also wish to welcome the 3 new members of the Executive Committee, Brazil, Colombia, and El Salvador. We now move on to consider the following agenda items. 1. Election of officers. I now yield the floor to the Secretary to report to the Executive Committee on the statutory provisions concerning this item. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Of the Rules of Procedure of the Executive Committee states, the committee shall elect a member of the committee to the presidency, the vice presidency, and the office of the rapporteur, respectively. They shall hold office until their successors are elected. Each elected member shall designate a person on its delegation to serve in that office for the duration of the session. The election shall take place each year at the first session of the committee following the election of new members of the committee by the Council of the Conference. Thank you, Madam President.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Distinguished Secretary. I now inform the committee that by agreement reached at the meeting of heads of delegation, Guyana has been nominated to the presidency. Are we all in agreement? Very good. Thank you. If there are no objections, I declare Guyana elected by acclamation and invite the delegate of Guyana to come to the head table to take on the position of president.
Vamos para mejor. La presidente del comité ejecutivo también recibe su martillo. Por favor, haga un buen uso de esa herramienta.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say that we are very pleased to hold this position, and we hope that we can fill the big shoes that Uruguay, the job that Uruguay did during their tenure. I want to thank all the members of the Executive Committee and the heads of delegation for putting their confidence in us to chair the meeting for the next year. And we endeavored to do our best as we move the good work of this organization forward. I think for the region, PAHO, as we all know, has done an extraordinary job in public health. And I think every year it presents a new opportunity for us to further the goals in our region. We have a very packed agenda in terms of the aspirations and the things that we want to do for the region. So the upcoming year presents that opportunity for us to work hard and make sure that all the things, that the goals that we have set ourselves, that we are able to achieve. And of course, with the leadership of Dr. Barbosa and his team, I'm very confident that we'll be able to achieve that. So once again, I want to thank all of you for putting this confidence in us. And we look forward to working with you as we advance the agenda of the region. Thank you. I would now like to inform the committee that El Salvador, so we go now to the next agenda item, which is election of the vice president. I would like to inform the committee that El Salvador, after being elected as a member of the executive committee, has expressed its interest in occupying the vice presidency. Are we in agreement? If there are no objections, I declare El Salvador elected by acclamation and inform the delegate of El Salvador that he may remain in his seat. We now move to the election of the rapporteur. I would like to inform that under the agreement reached at the meetings of heads of delegation, Ecuador has been proposed to serve as the rapporteur. Are we in agreement? If there are no objections, I declare Ecuador elected by acclamation and invite the delegate of Ecuador to take a seat at the head table. I would like to inform the committee that there is no need to adopt a resolution on the item. The appointments will appear as a decision in the final report. I would like to now go to the adoption of the agenda. I would like to bring document CE 175/1 to the attention of the committee and request that the secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rule 9 provides that the committee shall adopt its own agenda and, in doing so, may make such additions or modifications to the provisional agenda as it may wish in accordance with these rules. The provisional agenda, document CE 175/1, was prepared by the director and distributed in accordance with the rules of procedure of the Executive Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I now open the floor to the plenary to begin the discussions. Any changes? If there are no objections, I declare the agenda adopted. I would like to bring to your attention that there is no need to adopt a resolution on the item. The adoption of the agenda will appear as a decision in the final report. We now move on to item 3.1, election of 2 members of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget, and Administration on the expiration of the period of office on the Executive Committee of Argentina and Jamaica. I bring to your attention item 3.1, the provisional agenda, and would request that the Secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Subcommittee on Program, Budget, and Administration is composed of 4 members elected from among the membership of the Executive Committee and 3 members designated by the Director. As the period of office of the Executive Committee of Argentina and Jamaica expired, it is necessary to elect 2 new members from among the membership of the Executive Committee to serve on the subcommittee in their place. Ecuador, and the United States of America continue to serve on the subcommittee for 2025. If the number of candidates does not exceed the number of vacancies, Rule 45 of the Rules of Procedure state, election shall normally be held by secret ballot. When the number of candidates for elective office does not exceed the number of office to be filled, no ballot shall be required, and such candidates shall be declared elected. Where ballots are required, one teller shall be appointed by the President from among the delegates. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank Argentina and Jamaica for their contributions for this very important subcommittee. Mr. President, I presented Canada and Guyana during the meeting of the heads of delegation that we had on Monday this week, and it was agreed by consensus by all heads of delegation presented that Canada and Guyana should be the two new participants of the subcommittee on program budget and administration. Thank you.
Microphone for the President, please.
Sorry.
The President's microphone is not on.
I now move on to item 3.2, appointment of the award committee for PAHO Award for Health Services and Management and Leadership in 2025. I would like to bring document CE 175/2 to the attention of the committee and invite Dr. James Fitzgerald of the Department of Health Systems and Services to come to the head table and present the item. Dr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much, President of the Executive Committee, Director Dr. Barbosa, members of the Executive Committee. Every year, the governments of the countries of the Americas, acting through their representatives at the meetings of the governing bodies of the Pan American Health Organization, confer the PAHO Award for Health Services Management and Leadership. In 2024, this award was awarded to Dr. Jean-Patrick Alfred of Haiti. In 2025, the award will again be conferred on a candidate who has made a significant contribution in his or her home country or throughout the region of the Americas. The Director of the Pan American Sanitary Bureau will invite member states to submit no more than 2 nominations for the award through a call for candidates during November each calendar year. The names of candidates proposed by each member state must be received by the Director of the Pan American Sanitary Bureau no later than March 31st in the year of the award, in this case, March 31st, 2025. According to procedures adopted in the 158th session of the Executive Committee in 2016 and by the 56th Directing Council in 2018, the Award Committee will be selected each year during this first session of the Executive Committee. The members of the Award Committee will receive the nominations prior to the 176th session of the Executive Committee for their review. The Pan American Sanitary Bureau will then arrange a meeting of the Award Committee for their members to deliberate on the proposed candidates and submit its recommendation during the week of the session of the Executive Committee in June 2025. The Executive Committee is invited to nominate a delegate and alternate from each sub-region to serve in the Award Committee, together with the President of the Executive Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitzgerald. To facilitate the deliberations on this item, I would like to propose Ecuador and El Salvador as principal members of the Awards Committee and Canada and Chile as alternates. With this proposal, all sub-regions are represented. I would now like to open the floor of the plenary for a discussion. If there are no objections, I declare Ecuador and El Salvador as principal members and Canada and Chile as alternates. I would like to inform the committee that there is no need to adopt a resolution on the item. The appointments will appear as a decision in the final report. We now proceed to item 4.1, proposed dates for meetings of the governing bodies of PAHO in 2025. The 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget and Administration of the Executive Committee. I would like to bring to the attention of the committee document CE 175/3, sub-item A, which refers to the proposed dates for the 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget and Administration, and ask the Secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under its terms of reference, the Subcommittee on Program, Budget and Administration shall hold at least one session a year. Additional sessions of the subcommittee may be convened in the years when the program budget of the organization is being considered. The members of the Executive Committee are asked to set the dates of the 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget and Administration. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I yield the floor to the Director to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to propose to the Executive Committee to consider to have the Subcommittee on Program Budget and Administration meeting, as we had last year, to have a two-day meeting. So I'm proposing the 19th and 20th of March 2025 to be the dates for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I now open the floor to the plenary to begin the discussions. None? If there are no objections, I declare these dates approved. We now move on to item 4.1b, the 176th session of the Executive Committee. I would like to bring document CE 175/3, sub-item B, to the attention of the committee, which refers to the proposed dates for the 176th session of the Executive Committee, and asks the Secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Article 17A of the PAHO Constitution provides that 2 regular meetings of the Executive Committee shall be held every year. One of these meetings shall be held at the place of the meeting of the Council or the Conference and immediately following it. Special meetings shall be held when convoked by the Director of the Bureau, either on his own initiative or upon request of at least 3 member governments. The members of the Executive Committee are asked to set the dates of the 176th session of the Executive Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I now yield the floor to the Director to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to propose that the 176th session of the Executive Committee be held from the 23rd to 27th June 2025. Thank you.
I yield the floor to the plenary to begin the discussions. If there are no objections, I declare these dates approved. We now move on to item 4.1, proposed dates for meetings of the governing bodies of PAHO in 2025. Item C, the 62nd Directing Council of PAHO, the 77th session of the Regional Committee of WHO for the Americas. I would like to bring to the attention of the committee document CE 175/3, subitem C, which refers to the proposed dates for the 62nd Directing Council of PAHO and the 77th session of the Regional Committee of WHO for the Americas, and ask that the Secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rule 1 of the Rules of Procedure of the Directing Council states, the Director shall convene sessions of the Council in conformity with Article 12, Paragraph A of the Constitution. In turn, Article 12, Paragraph A of the Constitution reads, the Council shall normally meet once a year in those years in which the Conference does not meet. The members of the Executive Committee are asked to set the dates for the 62nd Directing Council and the 77th session of the Regional Committee of WHO for the Americas. Thank you, Mr. President.
I now yield the floor to the Director to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I reviewed very carefully the global calendar of the World Health Organization Regional Committees meeting next year, and the dates of the United Nations General Assembly in 2025 that we will have a high-level meeting on non-communicable diseases that I think that will be a very important topic for all the countries from our region that participate. So I am proposing the 77th session of the Regional Committee of WHO for the Americas and the 62nd Directing Council of PAHO be held from 29 September to the 30 October 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I yield the floor to the plenary to begin the discussions. If there are no objections, I declare that these dates approved and inform the committee that there is no need to adopt the resolution. The approved dates will appear as a decision in the final report. We now move to item 4.2, proposed topics for meetings of the governing bodies of PAHO in 2025. Item A, the 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program Budget and Administration of the Executive Committee. I would like to bring the attention of the committee document CE 175/4, which refers to the proposed topics for the 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program Budget and Administration, and asks the Secretary to report on the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rule 4 of the Rules of Procedure of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget, and Administration states, the Director of the Pan American Sanitary Bureau shall prepare the provisional agenda of sessions of the subcommittee, and it shall be dispatched with the notice of convocation. The provisional agenda shall include A, any item the inclusion of which has been ordered by the conference. B, any item the inclusion of which has been ordered by the council. C, any item the inclusion of which has been mandated by the executive committee. D, any item the inclusion of which has been mandated by a member of the subcommittee. E, any item proposed by a member state, participating state, or associate member. F, any item proposed by the director. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I now yield the floor to the Director to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased to present item 4.2a on the proposed list of topics for the 19th session of the Subcommittee on Program, Budget, and Administration of the Executive Committee to be held in March 2025. The proposed list of topics contains customary agenda items for the subcommittee, which include procedural matters such as the election of officers and the adoption of the agenda, program policy matters such as the draft proposed the strategic plan of the Pan American Health Organization 2026-2030, and the outline of the program budget of the Pan American Health Organization 2026-2027. Administrative and financial matters such as the overview of the financial report of the Director for 2024, and the report on the Master Capital Investment Fund. And finally, matters for information, such as the report on strategic issues between PAHO and WTO, and the proposed agenda for the 176th session of the Executive Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. I now yield the floor to the plenary to begin discussions on the proposed topics for the 19th Subcommittee on the Program, Budget, and Administration. No comments? Okay. Dr. Barbosa, any comments?
No, no further comments, Mr. President.
I would like to inform the committee that there is no need to adopt a resolution. The approved topics will appear as a decision in the final report. I now yield the floor to the Secretary to make an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. In relation to item 4.2b, all delegates have received this table that you find before you. We informed the delegates that additional information regarding program policy matters for the 176th session of the Executive Committee has been distributed to members of the committee for your consideration. Thank you, Mr. President.
So we now move to item 4.2b, the 176th session of the Executive Committee. I would like to bring to the attention of the committee document CE 175/5, which refers to the proposed topics for the 176th session of the Executive Committee, as well as for the 178th and 180th sessions, and requested the Secretary to read the statutory provisions concerning this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rule 6 of the Rules of Procedure of the Executive Committee states that the provisional agenda of a session of the committee shall be prepared by the Director. Rule 7 states, the provisional agenda shall include A, any item the inclusion of which has been ordered by the conference, B, any item the inclusion of which has been ordered by the Council, C, any item proposed by the committee, D, any item proposed by a member or an associate member, E, any item proposed by the Director. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I now yield the floor to the Director to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, for next year, we have some topics that are regularly presenting in the Executive Committee agenda, and we also have some specific topics that we need to discuss. And some suggestions from member states last year that we postponed in order to have a not very busy agenda this year. So I will read the topics that are being proposed. First, the strategic plan, proposed strategic plan of the Pan-American Health Organization 2026-2031. We need to discuss and to approve the next strategic plan. The proposed program budget of the Pan-American Health Organization 2026-2027. So regularly we approve the budget for the biennium, the next biennium. PAHO budget policy, that also is a topic that you have regularly during our Executive Committee. And the scale of assessed contribution for 2026-2027, that also always is part of the discussions in the Executive Committee meeting. We have 3 proposals that are a combination of proposals that came from member states in informal consultation that were presented last year that are the following. Plan of Action on Non-Communicable Disease Prevention and Control 2025-2030. Policy for expanding equitable access to high-cost and high-price health technologies. Strategy on Science and Evidence for Health 2025-2030. Strategy on Health and Migration 2026-2031. and the strategy for strengthening health emergency and disaster risk management for health security 2025-2031. The proposed list of topics also contains those standard items under committee matters, administrative and financial matters, and the personnel matters, as well as several progress and final reports under matters for information. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. I now yield the floor to the plenary to begin discussions on the proposed topics for the agenda of the 176th session of the Executive Committee. I recognize Canada.
Canada thanks PAHO for the proposed agenda for the 176th session of the Executive Committee. We are concerned to note another very full agenda with substantive items that will require significant engagement from member states, including the new strategic plan and the program budget for 2026-2027. Recalling the just completed Directing Council meeting, which required long days to move through the packed agenda, we strongly urge that we keep these governing body agendas streamlined and strategic. As we develop the new strategic plan, which will reflect our agreed-to regional priorities and set the direction of PAHO's work for that 6-year period, we strongly encourage a movement away from standalone policies or strategies where possible, and instead focus our efforts on ensuring that these key issues are adequately reflected in the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. I now recognize El Salvador.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Director and Mr. President. On behalf of my country, El Salvador, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be a member of the Executive Committee and at the same time hold the position of Vice President of the committee. We also thank you for the strategic issues for PAHO for 2025, and we are pleased to confirm that these align with our needs and our own strategic topics for the next 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, El Salvador. I now yield the floor to Colombia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colombia takes note of the topics proposed, and we also would like to draw the committee's attention that after the 77th World Health Assembly, 41 member states jointly stated and acknowledged the crucial role of PAHO and WHO in promoting efforts to address the impact of drugs on public health. At that time, we underscored the need to adopt comprehensive measures that cover the entire continuum of public health and based on the fundamental principles of equality, individual freedom, social justice, and human rights, such as reduction risks and harm, mental health, drug consumption, access to controlled medicines, and prevention of opioid overdoses, have moved forward in WHO, and it's up to PAHO to move this forward in this hemisphere. We need continuous action to overcome the major challenges presented by drugs that threaten the health and human rights of our societies. The demand for illegal drugs have reached levels never seen before, putting a disproportionate burden on our health systems. The manufacturing, legal trafficking of drugs is increasing quickly, and the proliferation of synthetic drugs is growing at an alarming rate, creating an enormous crisis with an unprecedented death due to overdoses. All of this affects directly the right to health and well-being of our populations. That's why Colombia, in addition to its commitment to create a national network to reduce harm with different interested parties, has decided to encourage the adoption of risk reduction measures through our development plan and our national health policy. And we have adopted a daring approach and strong support to allow us to implement our aspirations dealing with drugs through the use of innovative measures adapted to our context to reduce risks and harm. In view of these events, PAHO has a fundamental role in working together with the states. Although at the 30th Sanitary Conference, we looked at the final report on the strategy for the consumption of psychoactive drugs and public health and the use of these psychoactive drugs and health. And we believe that the drafting of the strategic plan for PAHO for 2030 needs to include the issue of drugs and public health, including measures to reduce harm and risk, including item 5 of the strategic plan of PAHO 2025-2030. So in the new strategic plan, we should increase the scope of the intermediate outcomes and include additional indicators and goals, more specific ones, that would build on indicator 5.E, so that we can more accurately measure the implementation of actions aimed to deal with the relationship between drugs and public health, including through measures to reduce risks and harms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colombia. We now yield the floor to the United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and congratulations on your election. We appreciate the critical topics that are presented on the agenda for next year's session. We did want to take the opportunity to echo Canada's note on striving to ensure that we have streamlined and strategic agendas. I think as we saw in the recently concluded Directing Council, member states are eager to engage, and to foster that robust and meaningful engagement among member states, we need sufficient time to have those conversations. Noting that there are several key priorities on the agenda for 2025, including NCDs, health and migration, we should really seek to maximize our time together to advance progress in the region, and sufficient time to effectively address these critical priorities and topics is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, U.S. We now yield the floor to Chile.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I congratulate you on your election. Chile feels that this space for conversation is key. It's important to take events to the Directing Council for decision. And in that connection, we support what was said by Canada initially, and it's something that was now supported by the United States of America. It's important that we have an agenda that is both operative and strategic. I think that a limited number of topics can favor an in-depth conversation, something that would support development of the countries. And in that connection, and speaking for myself, I would like to understand why item 2, point 2, having to do with access to creative health technologies is still a priority. This is a personal doubt.
Chile. I now would like to yield the floor to Dr. Barbosa. I'm sure you have some comments.
Yes, no, thank you. I think that first I want to thank all the comments and suggestions. I fully agree, and we try to reduce the topic. So this year we had the 8, and now we are proposing 5. But I think that we can reduce a little bit further so we have more time. So I would like to propose only 3 topics. I think that there are 2 that we can postpone to 26 and with no prejudice, and to concentrate the discussion on the strategic plan. So I'm proposing to keep the plan of action on non-communicable disease prevention and control, the policy for expanding equitable access to high-cost and high-priced health technologies. And this is because I think that we need to, this is an area that we have had in recent years. I think that a very limited capacity to provide technical cooperation, and as this expanded as a public health economical problem, financial problem for the Ministry of Health, we want to have a resolution strengthen the regulatory aspects, the assessment of technology aspects, and the strategies to increase the access. And the third is strategy on health and migration, because health and migration, I think that's a topic that is increasing in the region again, unfortunately, and Many member states in some conversation that I had asked me to have a deeper discussion on that. So the idea seria to have only these three ones. Because I understand that Colombia is not proposing a new topic, but calling our attention for this, the public health dimension of the problems of drugs, and to have this discussion during the general debate about the strategic plan to reinforce that we need to have a public health response on the problems that we have in all the countries in this region related to drugs and substance use and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barbosa. I would like to inform the committee that there is no need to adopt a resolution. The approved topics will appear as a decision in the final report. Oh. Sorry,
No, thank you so much, President, and congratulations on your election. Earlier today, Brasil está muito contente, está de...
Brazil is very happy to be back on the executive committee, so I merely wanted to appreciate our appreciation for electing us to work with Brazil, Colombia, and El Salvador, and also to say that Brazil is in keeping with the topics that were agreed upon for the next cycle.
So I would like to now inform the committee that there is no need to adopt a resolution. The approved topics will appear as a decision in the final report. We now move to item 5.1, report on the Master Capital Investment Fund and on the Master Capital Investment Plan implementation. I would like to bring the document CE 175/6 to the attention of the committee and invite Ms. Christian Beck, Director of Administration of the Pan American Sanitary Bureau, to come to the head of the table and present the item. Ms. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to you, to the Director, and members of the Executive Committee and colleagues. I would like to introduce the update on the Master Capital Investment Fund implementation. This update is specifically on the HQ renovation project. Phase 1 was fully completed in May 2024 and addressed the most pressing items identified in the 2015 property condition assessment, including replacing the HVAC systems on floors 2 and 10 and replacing the entire electrical system, all of which were original to this 60-year-old building. The principal objectives were to enhance the air quality and safety for personnel, incorporating accessibility features and strengthening energy efficiency and sustainability. Total expenses of Phase 1 from inception to completion were $28.4 million, as previously reported. Phase 2 is underway with new millwork on the 10th floor and structural repairs to the concrete in the garage having been completed earlier this year. The major focus of Phase 2 involves replacement of the HVAC units on floors 3 through 9, which were last replaced in 2002, 22 years ago, having therefore surpassed their recommended useful life cycle. New HVAC systems on these 7 floors will permit simultaneously heating and cooling the floors to mitigate overheating on the south facade. Phase 2 also includes renovation of the washrooms on each floor of the building. In parallel to the ongoing renovation work, a workplace strategy project was carried out that provided information on how best to redesign the interior spaces on floors 3 through 9 to optimize collaboration, productivity, accessibility, and well-being of personnel, consistent with updated office space practices. This added project scope, budgeted at $5.86 million, includes, among other other items, a refresh to the cafeteria, and new glass wall partitions to increase the light distribution throughout the floors. Table 1 shows the updated budget for Phase 2 of $24.0 million. Implementing all Phase 2 renovation components together will both save time and reduce costs. Completion is planned for late 2025. We will continue to update you on the progress of the renovations. We greatly appreciate the support of member states that you've provided to the organization to address these long-pending renovations to PAHO's headquarters building, creating a more energy-efficient and functionally up-to-date work environment for PAHO personnel, member state delegates, and visitors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Executive Committee is invited to take note of this report and to provide any comments pertinent to the report. I'll now like to open the floor to the plenary for discussion. Okay, if there are no comments, perhaps I can turn to the director for any comments.
No, thank you very briefly, Mr. President. Just to thank our member states for the continued support. As you know, this is an iconic building, a historical building, a wonderful building, but we had to replace many systems that were totally at the point of collapse because they were 60 years old. And we also had that emergency in our basement. We had some cracks on the concrete, and everybody was concerned, but we could repair it without any I think that no need of further work on the parking. And now the idea is to complete the renovation of the 3rd to the 9th floor in order to renovate the HVAC system. As Ms. Becky mentioned, they are 22 years old, and we need to replace them in order to guarantee the air quality in this building, and also to renovate the way that we have the floors to have more collaborative space, more meeting rooms, so that we can put our teams to work together when they have their days working at the office. So that's it, and we will continue reporting to you about this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. I would like to inform the Council that the discussions would be noted in the final report. We now move to item 6, other matters. Director, are there any other matters that you would like to bring to the attention of the committee?
No, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any delegate would like to raise anything? Okay. I would like to inform the committee that the discussions, we hadn't much of a discussion here. So this would be reflected in the final report, no discussion. We now move to item 7. In closing the session, I would like to invite the director to make some final remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. This executive meeting in general is a very short one because it's just to establish the dates of the new governing body cycle. But we had a very good discussion on the topic. I think that this was, I think that I think that we are aligned, totally aligned that we need to keep our agenda strategic, not having 20, 30 topics. I think that, and next year we will have a very important discussion about the strategic plan. So I think that it will be really important to implement the lessons that we learned during the implementation of the current strategic plan, and also the new challenges that we have in this post-pandemic era, the new challenges that our countries are facing. I want also to welcome and to congratulate Brazil, Colombia, and El Salvador. I want to thank the Uruguay, that is the outgoing president, and also to welcome our new president, Mr. Anthony, that has been always a very important participant of our governing bodies meeting, and I do believe that will be an excellent chair or president of this executive committee too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. I think we had a very efficient meeting, and everybody stuck with the time, and in some cases didn't want to make any comments. So I think if this is going to be a precedent going forward, then we'll have very efficient and effective meetings. I also would like to welcome Brazil, Colombia, and El Salvador to the Executive Committee. And I once again would like to thank everyone for the confidence they have in us to chair these meetings. And of course, I want to add my congratulations to El Salvador as the Vice President. Again, we look forward to serving, and I want to thank all of you for your participation. And with that, we bring this meeting to a close. Thank you.
Where is the hammer?
Enough.